Looking forward to having another chat today with Dr. Ken Gray, who was on a recent episode. He's Doctor of Oriental Medicine. He's also an expert in acupuncture, and he's on staff down at Jupiter Medical Center. He also has his own private practice, and he's the host of the very popular Maximum Health radio show. Dr. Ken Gray, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Yep, we had a chat after our last podcast, and we talked about fertility. We got onto that topic, and so we decided that it would be great to talk about that today. And let me just frame this in a way that will be helpful for people who are wondering if they should invest the next 30 minutes listening to this podcast. Well, the problem with rheumatoid arthritis and family planning is that we're often on medications that prevent us from being able to have children. And I was told when I was put on methotrexate that family planning was not going to be something that I would be able to look forward to anytime soon. And then as I was looking at having to increase and change medications, the methotrexate was going to remain in the mix. So for me, I was very much in dismay about my potential chances of having kids. And the same thing can happen to others listening to this might be on a biologic drug or a similar disease-modifying drug, and then they have a window of opportunity where they come off the meds where they must get pregnant. And this can be stressful, and that window of opportunity is delicate as pain levels can sometimes return. You have great effectiveness and a great track record of helping people get pregnant. And I think that this is going to be really interesting to learn from you as you share with us some of the ways that you help to increase fertility with some of your patients. So why don't you start from that point and give us some tips?
Thank you. No, I can only imagine how fearful that not only the diagnosis of RA is, but then the fact that you wouldn't be able to, procreate, see your own progeny, and have a family. And I mean, that's a lot to take in. So, what does one do? Do you look outside of the general medicine for some answers? And I think I would encourage people, wherever they are, to definitely do some research, because it is out there that people do go on, like yourself, to have healthy children and to do very well, despite these very toxic drugs, which take a load, will put a really heavy load on certain organs, which are really a big part of reproductivity. So that's what we have to look at. We have to look at the human biological machine. We have to look at all of the things tied in to it, and that how it equals fertility. And what I like to tell my patients is this. I say, when you're in balance, the body's going to do what it's meant to do. So that's all we have to do is bring your body back into balance. And now that's a different approach than saying, okay, I'm going to go to a fertility clinic. And
right. Yeah, totally. We're, because it's not like the body or human beings are not good at expanding our race, right? I mean, look how many people and the population growth. Clearly where we work by default. And so it's about trying to just get it back to that, right?
Yeah. I mean, and what you're saying is more, it's so simple, but it's more important than people can really imagine. Because when you look at the human being down to its cellular level, it is about replication. It is about multiplication. It is about expanse and birth and life. And, so when you look at our cells, when they're healthy, they multiply. They do what they're meant to do when they're in balance. So we're not much different. We're just,
large versions
of what's going on. Yep. But to the contrary, if the cells in our body is not healthy, then those cells do not multiply the way they're meant to, and they fragmented and unhealthy, and sometimes, we know there's words for all of this, and we don't want those diagnoses, but we do know they're not healthy. And so we want to talk about health, and we want to talk about balance. We want to talk about the promise of achieving our deepest goals, which is to have a family. I think no matter where you are, most people, that is what you want to do. Not discounting those that don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because some people do not care to have children. That's
Mm-hmm.
fine.
Mm-hmm.
For you.
When I've got a few friends in Australia who never sort of step out of their careers as stand-up comics when they're as friends also. And when I have told, one guy in particular, we're pregnant with our first child and all this, his only response of, "That's awesome. The world's definitely underpopulated. We need more people." Right? So
the view of some people.
Yeah. Like obviously, because his first response is to create humor, and then secondary, he's obviously happy for me. But look, but generally speaking, you're 100% right. Most people.
And obviously, I was realizing that is a sarcastic remark.
Of course.
Yeah. Know where it's coming from. And that is a view that some people think we are overpopulated and we don't anymore. But, this is for the people that do want to have children.
That's right.
And, and I'm one of those people that I love every one of my kids. And I couldn't imagine not having had them.
Yeah.
Right now, we're looking at a time when, like we said, you have this diagnosis of RA, or you just generally are having issues with fertility. What do we do?
Yep.
So zeroing in on the balance, what is that? First of all, I like to think that when we have a lot of the main aspects of our bodies, detox and drainage working well. I think we mentioned this before, that was part of the system that gets shut down when we're then diagnosed with things like RA and other autoimmune diseases, is the detox and drainage. When we look at detox and drainage, we look at three main organs, counting the kidneys as one, that have to do with detox and drainage. Now, when those are working well, generally the body is representative of beautiful health and balance. When they're not, a lot of other things happen. And we're going to look at the liver right now. And the energetic purposes of the liver is to keep the free flow of energy and blood moving. Interestingly enough, the liver meridian energetically runs through the reproductive organs. So when we look at stress, when we look at toxic substances going through the blood and through the liver, when we look at poor diets, when we look at high fat diets and high alcohol and all those things, and then we look at libido, we can see how there's a connection.
Yep.
Right? Stress levels go up, cortisol levels go up, sex drive goes down, male and female. Now, how does that have to do with fertility? Well, sex drive is part of that first stage. It's the body's way of knowing that it's ready and prepared for the act of procreation, right? So fertility and libido are very much tied together.
Interesting. That's very interesting because certainly we've had no problem with libido and no problem with having babies. So I've personally seen that correlation very much in my little sample of one. But it's just interesting to hear you say that. So okay, great. I'm enjoying this so far.
Yeah. So and it's so important that it's so simple and makes sense, because that's really what nature wants it to be. Us to be.
Would you say?
And for everything to be simple. We're the ones that complicate.
Hey, Dr. Grower, this is interesting. I've forgotten about this, but now I want to. You've enlightened me on this. But when I was very, very in a very bad way, and I was on methotrexate, and I was in a lot of pain, it was the first time in my life where I did have very low libido, and I hadn't really reflected on that until now. During the time, I remember, not having interest in that, and then I've not, as I said, reflected on that until now. And now you enlighten me on that. I can see the black and white compared to today and at that time. It's like it just disappeared. My body said, "Look, you're not in a state to go and create another human being."
And what's interesting though is it took a lot for you to sort of connect with your body and what was going on. Women, more than men, are always connected. they're always sensitive to the emotional component and how it has to do with their physical existence as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
They have to deal with it every month. They have to deal with it with every situation. They are constantly in a physical roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
So when you had diseases or let's call it syndromes,
Yep.
Because they're a combination of diagnoses tied together, like fibromyalgia,
Mm-hmm.
right? To name one of the many of these syndromes floating out there, where at first doctors would say, you're just crazy. You need a psychologist because we don't have anything physically wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
But they're able to see that the emotional component is very real, very much as real as the physical component. And now it's just now that conventional medicine, allopathic medicine, is catching up to that realization that the emotion and the gut, which is the liver, spleen, kidneys, the digestive tract, bacteria, enzymatic processes in the liver. All of these things have a lot to do. It's like a whole other brain besides what's happening in your head, and what's happening in your gut are just as important.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And also have a lot to do with your ability to be fertile, male and female. Right. So we got the liver.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's a hormonal site. We know that the energy has to be flowing freely. We know that energy and blood are tied together. Without energy to move blood doesn't move.
Yeah.
So meridians and the blood flow pathways of the arteries and capillaries and veins, all of those things are very much tied together in traditional Chinese medicine. So like I said, the liver pathways right through reproductive organs, right to the chest. And that's why women, we see this energetic blockage every month when they're out of balance. They have cramps, lower abdominals, distension, breast distension, same pathway. The ovaries mirror the breasts. They feel a lot of blockage there. They feel a lot of blockage here. Once you get the blockage away and move it away, you get the balance of the liver, spleen, kidneys. A lot of my patients anyways, don't even know the period is on their way, that their menstrual cycle is here. Sometimes they will just be out of dinner and will come and said, this is unheard of. I've always had painful, I've always had endometriosis, I've always had this. But when they get treated, acupuncture, diet, so forth and so on, exercise, good rest, juicing, so forth, their menstrual cycle is a whole different picture.
Hey, can we just like park our main dialogue for a moment and just explore that just for a little further? I know this is there's exceptions and so forth, but would you generally say that it is possible for a monthly cycle to be quite painless? And yeah,
Absolutely.
right,
Absolutely.
Okay.
I had to, because in a lot of the times, if you think about conventional medicine, when you have infertility, there are more times than not is a history of painful periods, endometriosis, cysts, fibroids, all of those things. So when we look at those actual manifestations of blockages over time, become mass. Energy blockages over time are blockages of blood flow become blockages of mass. Fibrosis, cysts, endometriosis. That's all it is. Chronic blockages. Reproductive system and reproductive organs and areas tied to the blockages and irregularities of liver. Now, when you look at hormones, alcohol, cigarette smoking, starting in the teens, so you have very strong hormones of birth control, alcohol, cigarette smoking. All of those having to be filtered through the liver, causing imbalances, causing these.
Good. Because I was just about to ask you, and we're this episode's going to be very, we're just going to be freewheeling this whole thing because it's I don't have a lot of expertise in this area, so I'm as curious as our audience here. I want to ask you, do you see that it tends to be a little more challenging for females who've been on birth control for a long time then come off it to then fall pregnant? And if it is the case, is it because of what you've just explained to create a liver imbalance because of the relationship between the birth control and the liver?
I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but that is one. And again, I don't even, there may be some maybe parents or individuals out there that are trying now listening to this saying, well, I never smoke, I never drank, but let's look at diet. Let's look at congenital deficiencies. For parents, did they have poor liver condition? Did you have a lot of other things that you had to take as a child in the drug area for whatever reason? The drug, right, which were legal, or not necessarily recreational, but those took its toll on the liver.
Okay.
So again, I don't want to harp on that, but that is a very common situation where you have birth control for very long periods of time.
Yeah.
Alcohol usage, caffeine, caffeine is huge.
Right.
Also very hard on the liver.
Right.
And then
Good.
cigarette smoking and nicotine, that sort of thing.
Good.
And then it hasn't even touched on the other drugs. So yes, absolutely. You have a liver condition which is tied to the imbalance of the reproductive organs. You have to work on the root, which is the liver, energy, liver condition, and the branch, which is the reproductive organs. And when you do that, you work locally with acupuncture, you work and you mirror it with diet, lifestyle, the healing foods, which we can get into, some of those healing foods, which fall very much in line with what you did.
Mm-hmm. Great.
The green diet, a lot of these foods are green-based, alkalizing. So we can get into specifics. When you do that, lifestyle, acupuncture to remove the blockages, target blood flow, bring balance, reduce stress, you've got yourself a winning combination. So when you have those cases, which are very common these days, where they go through the whole process of IVF, they spend $25,000 upwards, sometimes 3, 4, 5 times with no success. They never dealt with the root problem, which was the whole system being out of balance, the blockages, and then sometimes it does tap into, like I said, the kidneys and the spleen, and we can talk about the organs as well.
Awesome. So I'm going to leave it up to you. Do you want to talk about some dietary things that can help the liver, or do you want to talk about the spleen and the other organs and sort of complete the sort of the this is the problem part of our discussion, because maybe those foods also apply to overall health and helping those other organs. Where would you like to go? What would you like to?
Right now, I'd like for the listeners to take out their pen and pads.
Okay, good.
Some good key foods.
Yeah.
And I, just because it's such an easy tool and such an inexpensive tool, we're recording this right now in spring. No data will be around for many years to come, and many people will find this, and that's the digital universe for you. But I do have a book called Health and Balance. It's a spring book.
Mm-hmm.
I did all 4 seasons with a partner who's a cancer survivor and a female. She's great. And we brought both male, female components to it. Health and Balance, but the spring issue is available via Amazon. So just go on Amazon, download it on your Kindle, and it will have a lot of these dishes and foods, most of which are grain-based.
Great.
But let's talk about what it is. The liver in spring is the main organ, liver, gallbladder. In traditional Chinese medicine, we do not separate the liver from the gallbladder. It's one organ. And if you look at it structurally, the gallbladder is just sitting.
Right. Okay. Yep.
So we want to do a nice intake of what's available in the spring. We want maybe some carrots, some pears, right? Mm-hmm. We want some spices. We want which falls under the anti-inflammatory. So ginger, cardamom, turmeric, cinnamon. Mm-hmm. Those are all things that stimulate a healthy liver. Mm-hmm. Also, the ginger, I like the fresh ginger root, not just the powder, because that will help with bile, not only production, but also just general metabolism, digestion, and all of those sort of things. So even a reflux, which is a liver gallbladder condition, ginger root.
Ginger root. Yeah.
So also, I would say for fertility and for the liver, green things like kelp, blue-green algae, and kelp.
Mm-hmm.
Kelp is one of the number one supplements that I recommend for patients trying to get pregnant, because it not only is it going to help the thyroid, but it's going to help the liver and thereby balance hormones and nourish the body in a very good way. It's also, in our medicine, good for the kidneys and adrenals.
Fabulous. Okay.
Right? So seaweed, right? And then we're going to go over to the family of sprouts.
Awesome. Sprouts, rich in
Right.
enzymes.
Yes. Rich in enzymes, rich in protein.
Mm-hmm.
Not easy to digest protein, which is great. And also to other antioxidants and cancer-fighting chemicals, which target cancer cells. So dandelion sprouts, red clover sprouts, which are packed full of amino acids. Red clover flower, red clover tea, I recommend even drinking the tea in the afternoon for my fertility patients instead of caffeine. You'll notice a whole body pick-me-up.
Sensational.
Forget about it. But yes, if you can't juice the sprouts in the afternoon, you grab yourself some red clover tea. Wonderful flower. Nature made it for us. It's a beautiful pick-me-up. No caffeine, but you get your naturally occurring amino acids in that. So to recap, we've got your carrots, your ginger, your pears and apples and those sort of things in the springtime. A lot of the things that are naturally available there. You want your sort of pungent spices, which are very good to keep the detoxing going. And I think, of course, you want to eat a little bit lighter. As nature changes, you're going from eating a heavier diet in the winter. So now you want to lighten up. And juicing is going to be helpful for you to do that as well. Juicing is not smoothies. Smoothies generally is going to be a lot of fibrous material mixed up with the nutrients. Juicing is taking the fiber out. You can still use it. You can bake it, what have you, if you don't want to waste. But we want to just ease the body, just give it the nutrients and let the digestion processes sort of calm down from all those rich, heavy, fatty, holiday foods, the rich meats and the heavy alcohols and all that. We want to start to calm it down. We want to think light like butterflies, right?
Mm-hmm.
When spring, we think of flowers and blooming.
Mm-hmm.
We want to do. We want to bloom and we want to be light. So everything light is going to be a good dietary choice, even down to your, the use of even sugars. You don't want heavy sugars. You don't want heavy pastries. You want everything just fruits, natural sugars.
Yeah.
And on the pastries and all the baking that we did in the winter, that changes and shifts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that allows for detox, which will then affect the other organs.
Right. Yep.
So lead to increased fertility and libido, which is the spleen, pancreas, which is to the left of the liver, right next door, very much connected. So we want those to work well, because when the liver is not working well, spleen, pancreas is not working well, and vice versa. The spleen, pancreas is your center for your spleen is your white cell, T cells or fighter cell production site, lymph system site. It's energetically in charge of keeping its transformation and transportation nutrients. So it is the stove to the pot of soup, which is your stomach. So without that, if it's not balanced, if it's not working well, you won't have good muscle energy. You won't have much energy at all. You won't be able to process what you take in and make it into the energy that you need and the blood that you need. So it transforms what you take in into blood energy. Simple.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also a site for keeping the lymph system and all the things going, which is to get all the toxins out.
Right.
Okay? And then you've got your kidneys. And the kidneys are your powerhouse. It's your site for reproduction, because it also is the house of yin and yang, we call it. And interestingly enough, that on the top of the kidneys, we call them adrenals, but for us, it's the house of essence. And so that is where your rich essence comes from to be able to produce beautiful, healthy children. So provided everything's in balance, your essence and your adrenals, our essence, aka your adrenals, are strong, and you're strong, and your energy is strong, you have clear mind, you have a fullness. If you're always drinking the caffeine, have a lot of alcohol going through your system, not resting enough, taking certain drugs, what have you, the adrenals get depleted, and your ability to produce healthy, happy, strong children is greatly diminished. And if by some chance you do lose essence through that, your ability to recover as a female is very hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So levels now that we've gone through a few levels of what fertility, health, detox, and drainage and all those and how they combine. But we also want to look at the mother and the father. We want healthy parents. We don't just want healthy children. Because a lot of times they focus so much after going through this ordeal on the fertility, but if you're not healthy and you have not created a healthy lifestyle, a healthy household, you're in for a whole new challenge.
Yeah. And now, how important is it for both parents to be healthy? And do you think that, this is a process that both adults should be engaging in so that they can get the best possible statistical likelihood of conception?
So generally speaking, yes. I mean,
yeah, of course.
When you want the best outcome in something that requires a partnership, you want both partners to be equally healthy and trying their best.
Yep.
Now, obviously, we live in a world that still views it more as the female job, quote unquote.
Yeah.
I don't feel that way as a physician. I love it when both partners come in together, but it's still very rare. The male is about the work, he'll write the check, and as a female is the one attending the appointments by herself and going through it. Mm-hmm. And but I think, like I said, it comes down to creating a healthy partnership, healthy lifestyle, healthy home, healthy children, healthy family. If any of that is off balance, then there's going to be some issue down the road, even if there is conception.
Do you find that when you have anxious patients, whether it be because it's been a long time that they've been trying, or their partner is maybe not as interested in having a baby as they are, or their biological clock is ticking, or other reasons, that anxiety works against them? Or is that a mistruth?
No, I think you're absolutely right. Those are all reasons why patients can come in. They can sit in front of me. Some of them, if they're just starting out, it's going to be a lot easier because they don't have all of that weight on them.
Yep.
And all of those challenges behind them. The more that they've been trying, the longer that they've been trying, the more the relationship is sort of tested.
Yeah.
Or their health is compromised because they've had a lot of hormones go through their bodies. So their emotions are not what they used to be. They've gained weight. So their self-esteem is not what it used to be. So a lot of the times my job, which is so different than an IVF clinic or a conventional physician in general medicine, my job is really, again, to look at the whole person, look at the whole situation and restore them to where they are a woman first, a balanced, healthy woman first.
Yeah.
And I tell myself, we've got to bring you back. Because once we bring you back, your body's going to do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But you can't just be focusing on having a child because, God forbid, if you just had that child right now, you would not be ready to be a mother. So that's what we have to remember in the healing community that you're helping to create, that I'm a part of, and all of that, is that it's about healthy families, healthy lives. Just achieving a goal.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It's
easy to lose sight because you're going to these places where everything's about numbers.
Yeah.
It's about what they can do on paper. And that's very far from what we need as people.
Is there anything else, or are there some more things that you would suggest to someone who may walk in and be in that scenario? They've tried for 18 months. They're looking at paying a lot of money for getting the in vitro fertilization, or, whatever it's called, because I don't know much about it. Fortunately, have not had to do it. And they're worried, and they say, Dr. Gray, like, I really, really, really want to get pregnant, and you've walked through the things that you've already told us today with the dietary changes and so on. Is there any other things that you might like to speak to that person about who may be that sort of person listening?
I think lifestyle, life patterns comes to mind, because everyone has, at that stage, no one wants to be told what to do, what not to do.
Okay, yeah.
Because they want to encourage to remember what makes them happy and what will restore happiness and what will be a healthy approach to things that they normally find happiness in. I mean, realistically, once you've had so many needles and so many procedures and you've failed, and you have this person saying, okay, I now have what could possibly be the answer, the first thing is to make that connection between, okay, this is going to be teamwork.
Yep.
Be some healthy patterns we can establish in your life. One of the first things I tell them is you got to get rid of caffeine.
Yeah, good. That's literally the first thing I say as well.
Which is one of the first things they look at me and go, you got to be kidding me. Because they say, I don't drink, I don't do that, And so then we start to break it down as to, okay, what are the real harmful things?
Yeah.
Is a glass of red wine, is that going to hurt situations? Not necessarily in most cases.
No, yeah. But the daily coffee, that's just,
daily coffee will deplete your adrenals and your chances of reproducing after you've already depleted for years.
Yeah.
So, this idea that there's bad and good, not so much, but what's appropriate for you?
Yeah.
I want to bring across. And that's what I want to sit down with people and say, okay, this is about you. There's no generalization.
Mm.
And it's so different, again, from most procedures. Everything is just run of the mill. This is what we do. This is what works for us. And that may not work for you. So let's look at your issue.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, is after years of, like you said, even dealing with RA and dealing with some of the medications, whether or not that's the case or not, but that may present differently with prior histories for certain patients, because some may not be able to get pregnant because of blocked fallopian tubes. So then it's an issue of circulation and blood flow.
Right. And does that where some acupuncture can come into it? Okay.
Right. And very specific.
Right? And if I may, I would love to just share a short story that totally supports this before you then tell us about your acupunctural approach. My wife was with our last baby, Ariel. She was due for labor on a particular day, and the day come, and I think we were just 1 or 2 days past the expecting, due date, and we made inquiry about going to an acupuncturist, and we found out who people recommended, some of our friends, and said they were amazing. And this was in Sydney. So we went to the acupuncturist, and Melissa, lay down on the bed and had the needles. And then the lady just said, "This is going to be huge. I can just sense that this is going to have a profound effect." And I've only occasionally over the last 10 years witnessed acupuncture or had it myself. So not very, very dialed into its, profound effectiveness. And Melissa just started crying so much. She just started bawling out of nowhere. And the practitioner said, "This is what you need to go through. This is the result." It didn't hurt. It was that she was releasing. And I bet you know where this is going. But after the treatment, we got her back into the car. She felt a lot better. And lo and behold, by about 4 p.m. that afternoon, contractions began. Just like that. And I mean, I'm always one to say, well, skeptic, could be coincidence and stuff. But this was like profound for her. And so I just want to put that little story in people's minds as you now begin to talk about the acupuncture side of things here.
We want precision. We want individualized. We want, consideration for us as people, not just the symptom or the diagnosis. There's so many little, areas to look at. There's so many little, what do you call like in English muffins? The panels or what do they call them?
There's all of the nuances, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you really have to be clear on that because, like I said, I just touched on one aspect of what infertility can be, which is like the fallopian tubes being blocked. But what about someone who presents and they're very skinny and they have lost a lot of weight and they can't put on weight? And you say, oh, maybe the spleen pancreas has been, their diet. Maybe they ate a lot of salads and did a lot of exercise and overworked. And then and a lot of antibiotics because they were always, having colds all the time and traveled a lot for work. And so you can't just say, I'm just going to do this procedure and fix them. No, we've got to get the system working so they can put on some weight. Because if the body senses there's not enough extra to go around, it's not going to make another life.
Yep.
It's simple.
Yep.
So the first step is not to get her pregnant. I'm not going to say, oh, we're going to help increase your chances of,
Yep.
Even whether without IVF being a part of the picture, it's not going to work right now because you are malnourished. You don't have enough with you. You need to fix your ability to digest and process foods and get your strength back. And, so those are and then you have some people that are just high stress.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do? Is where they're anxious, not sleeping. They're, heart palpitations, anxiety. They're taking depression meds and anxiety meds. Has to be dealt with. So these are all these things that play into not just a history of autoimmune disease, but all the things that went around the autoimmune disease, be it the depression, anxiety, and so you've got to bring them from the root to the branch and show them and tell them, and they have to look for that. And I would urge everyone to look into that and start to ask those types of questions. I don't want to just see what you can do on paper in a petri dish or in a, with a machine. I want to know how you're going to make me better and make me the mother that I'm supposed to be for the child that I have in me that's waiting to come. Period.
Yep. They're very wholesome words, aren't they? Mother, family, health, balance. I mean, these words encompass so much. That's why someone who is practicing the way that you do has such a difficult job, because you are looking at all of the extremity issues that exist and have to almost just reach out and dial each one of them back to center again. And you don't know what's going to be the problems of the next person walking in the door. But what you've got to do is you've got to find the unique and bespoke ways in which you can get them back into balance, so we can, as you said at the beginning of this conversation, allow their body to then do the magic of falling pregnant the way that it's designed to do that magic itself.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. It must be very satisfying when you've helped someone fall pregnant. What does that feel like?
Well, now I've done it enough that I can walk into a public place or an outing and have a teenager walk up to me and their parents behind them and say, "Remember me?" And the parents behind them going, pointing, that
awesome.
Just, so it's years now of doing it. And of course, when you have people that stop you or still hug you years later and say, "Thank you for giving us family," or, or when that child can say that you're the reason I'm here.
Wow.
Which of course, that's just how it's translated to them, but I don't take that too much to head. But what I do take to heart is the privilege of having created a healthy family. And again, these outings, so that means that they're doing things together. These are not people that I can say I didn't do the fullness of my job, which is to create a balanced situation. That's what I really thrive on. I don't stop it, like I said, just the conception. I really start with the conversation. I let them know it's a good place if they want to cry, like you said, or laugh.
Yeah.
It's a safe place, and it's something that I'm looking to help all of them.
Yeah, good. Someone just popped their head in behind me. But
So,
we're used to that here in this Patterson household. Everyone's a part of our family operation. Well, that is, it's such a enjoyable thing to talk about. I've had a lot of fun talking about this, and the level of variety that exists from person to person is so great. We can't cover every possible scenario. But what if someone wants to reach out to you who's not in your local area? Do you do Skype consultations to help people who might be international or in a different state? And what's the best way for people to reach out for you in general?
I mean, I think it can begin easily with an email, drken@drkengray.com. So that's DRKEN at DRKENGREY.com, no periods or anything like that. I think also social media is helpful. People do reach out to me through Instagram, Doc Ken Gray, or Facebook, and Doc and then space KEN. And of course, a phone call, 561-746-7300 is great. And as I mentioned, I would definitely, I have a few books out that they can download. I don't know if that's helpful.
For sure, most definitely. I'll get you to offline. I'll have you email me each of the links to your books, particularly the ones relevant to this. I'll put at the top, particularly the one you mentioned earlier, the spring one. Yeah.
That's when all of nature is procreating. So it seems appropriate that we're having this conversation now. On the first day of spring, I think is this the first day of spring?
I couldn't say. Our day of recording today, what are we today? It's the 21st of March as we record this at the moment. But most people will be listening to this some point in the future as we edit it and get it live. And then, of course, people like to sometimes go through and download all the history and go through one at a time, and that could be happening anytime.
It's not the actual day. I think we're fairly close, but if it is, I feel very, I think it's serendipitous that we're having this conversation.
Absolutely. So. It's certainly a glorious day here. So we're very, very lucky. And I feel very grateful to be able to learn from you today, Dr. Gray. Thanks for coming back and sharing your time with us again. If you want to go ahead and go to pattersonprogram.com and find this episode on there, you just simply click on /blog and you'll find all the history of all of our podcast episodes. Type in Dr. Ken Gray or Dr. Gray, Grey, and his episodes, including this one, will show up and you'll be able to get all the show notes and just click through the links from there. Thank you very much. This has been very interesting.